Hello there. We are Impact Money, and we are live with Bruce Porter Jr.
Good morning, David. Good morning, Texas and Louisiana, and good morning, world. We are live on Impact Money, bringing you the latest and the greatest news happening around the world, and of course, locally in Texas and Louisiana as well. So, David, how was your weekend?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great to be on here. Thanks for having me, setting me up with our Porter brothers. I'm David Porter. We're the best in the crypto space. We've been around the world at tons and tons of conferences. I used to collect my conference badges, but the bag got so big, I just started to give it up. Too many badges.
Too many
And
badges. You don't
it's
need
been a
those
lot of
badges.
fun. I met amazing people. We built a vast network and some of the most intelligent minds in the world. And the concepts that they've come up with are incredible.
It really has been. It has been a pleasure, of course, to run around the world and do those things. One of the biggest reasons why it was so fun, of course, is because of the amazing people that we met. A lot of the best minds that we have ever seen and ever met in the space or in the world. Really, it's really it makes you smarter, right? When you're going around, because of course we would interview everybody as we did it. Um, and it makes you smarter when you're talking to people and when you're doing those things. So
And it's
pretty
also,
interesting stuff that we have going on here around the space. There's a lot of different things going on in the world. One of them really that just jumped out at me as I was going through the early news is this kind of high five Pakistan to Iran. It says, "No, we are brothers." And
I
which
was going to
actually,
say, going around the world is really fun, and doing business is fun to do with your family and do it with you, Bruce, my brother, big bro.
yes, it is really fun. Talking about brothers, right? Well, it's funny because, of course, they are brothers. You know what I mean? They are brothers. And when I saw those bombs flying, I thought, oh gosh, we're gonna have Pakistan and Iran now at it. Why are these guys hating on each other? And actually, good morning. And actually, it appears to me anyway. And I mean, you guys can weigh in. Of course, there's various ways. Of course, you can talk to us on X. We're streaming. You can comment on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and these other places. But let us know what you think. I think looks to me like they just got rid of the CIA and Mossad bases that they had in there. ISIS or whatever. But ISIS was funded and started by the U.S. and Israel. I have a video. I'll cue that up. We can play the great Ron Paul, spilling the beans, telling everybody this was funded by us. It was started by us. So by appearances anyway, what it looks like now is Iran took out a bunch of CIA Mossad bases, and then Pakistan did the same thing, and then they high-fived and they said, okay, it's on with business.
Well, that's pretty crazy.
I agree. Hopefully that's it, and they stop bombing each other. I'm not supporting any loss of life or anything, but I do think that we shouldn't have bases over there. So if those were bases, I mean, our intelligence agencies are a disaster. So a couple of things, I know we'll talk about them as well once our friend Matt joins. But a couple more headlines here. Hostage families storm the Israel. It's not a cabinet meeting, but Kisnet, something to the other. They're calling it there. A lot of protests going on now in Israel. Netanyahu is at I think all-time lows approval rating. I think 15%. Really is interesting that how long this is taken. I mean, you would think in an area so small that this would have been over in no time. Really, back in Vietnam, they had these things called the people sniffers. And Dad told us that people sniffers. And the people sniffers they were able to track you by your electronic signature. And so that's why even when we were saying that, we didn't know where Osama bin Laden was for all those years and everything, I was always kind of like, okay. Dad was too, like, all right, yeah, we don't know where Osama bin Laden is. We have people sniffers, okay? We can sniff we can follow the digital signatures, and that was 40 years ago. Longer. 50 years ago. Longer. How long ago was Vietnam War? I'm getting old. A long time ago. 50, 60 years ago, guys. We had people sniffers, and we could sniff them out. And so I don't get it why they haven't been able to. I don't think it's credible that they're not able to find the hostages. Now, that being said, it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback. Let me just preface it by that, And it's not a laughable matter either. We want those. We want all of that. We want peace. Okay. But the Pakistan-Iran thing I thought was pretty interesting. NATO is preparing, as we mentioned before, preparing for the Russian preparation for Russian invasion starts today. Are some of the headlines. NATO's largest military exercises since the Cold War start today. 90,000 troops, 50 ships, 80 fighter jets, 1,100 combat vehicles. They're calling it the Steadfast Defender 2024 exercise. It will defend against the Russian invasion of Europe. Of course, Putin kind of plays into all that. Did you see his slogan? He's running, I guess, for office again. Did you see his new slogan, David?
No, can you tell us what it is?
Russia's borders don't end anywhere.
That's I wouldn't have thought of that one.
The Russian people have always good.
Oh, we're on another continent. This is Russia. That is always Russia.
It's reported that Putin has submitted the official paperwork for registration in the upcoming Russian presidential election today. Keep him in office until 2030. The slogan is Russia's borders do not end anywhere. He claims that this is not a threat of Russian expansionism.
What's the threat when you're Russia?
Everybody else wants to go back however many hundreds or thousands of years and say it used to be their land, they want it back. Yeah, he's going to expand the Russian Empire. It used to be theirs.
Oh, man. The Russians are pretty classic.
It's a great country. There's no doubt about it. It's interesting over the years watching the leaders that have been in power. Of course, we had Gorbachev when I was coming up. And that was pretty interesting. His relationship with Reagan was very fascinating. Very fascinating to watch those two. Can you believe that 4 people survived the Afghanistan plane crash? Really unbelievable. There's a Russian plane that crashed in Afghanistan. Heavy bombing in Gaza. Let's see here. And we'll have Matt, of course, run through some of this stuff as well. But natural gas has tumbled again. It's pretty interesting what's going on with natural gas. I guess it would be pretty nice to trade. Seems to be going up, down, all around. 5%. Here, I can share my screen. We can for this part. Let me see here. And then we'll bring on Matt and talk about it here. Present. So you can always follow us, guys. I'm Networks Manager on X. David is Sir David Porter, and Matt Dixon, we're going to bring on in a second, is MD Trade. So natural gas tumbles. Oil holds gains. Last week's gains. Oil is holding pretty steady here. Natural gas, so look at that, 5.6%. Copper is holding pretty steady. Asian markets are a bit of a mixed bag. Shanghai down to over 2.5%, and then you got the Nikkei up about 1.5%. You can see some of the other ones there. I guess mostly, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. NASDAQ futures up about 5%. Are we going to hit some more all-time highs here? It sure looks like it. You know what that means? Brrr goes the printing press. Where's my tab here? Okay. Well, tech is doing pretty well, though. Okay, Dow futures are up slightly. Ethereum down about 4.5%. Now, since I posted these just right before we went on, there has been a bit of an uptick here. I can show you the live one. Litecoin under 70. Anytime Litecoin gets under 70, I start to feel the itch to buy more.
Oh, yeah.
Bitcoin going for a retest of 40K. Will Michael Saylor mash the buy button again? Looks like he already did. What were we at there? 499, and right now we're up at 800. Oh. I mean, this looked pretty fun to be demonstrated on. Who is this girl? I guess she must be a fighter or something. I mean, this poor guy, I feel so bad for him. It's rough, huh? We did have a bit of a research here. You can see on the Bitcoin. Markets are markets. Let's bring on Matt. Matt, give us some wisdom here, sir. How are you?
I'll do my best. I'm good, thank you. Very interesting developments in the world, in the news. So you just ran through the market. The Hang Seng was the interesting one that stood out to me there.
Right.
It just dipped below the 15,000, which is a very psychologically key level for the Hang Seng. Interesting. That's just dipped down.
And that is, go ahead. That is, where is that market based?
Basically, it's Hong Kong.
Yep.
So it's China, China effectively, the Hang Seng. So it covers Asia, a lot of Chinese companies. It's very important because obviously Chinese are, a really big economy in the world. At some point in the future, who knows, they may overtake the US. That's what they're always talking about. So we'll see, but that's just interesting. It's a psychological level. It's a major stock market and one to keep an eye on. But interestingly, as you say, the US indices are heading higher to the all-time highs. So, we'll take a look at those and see where they're going and also see where Bitcoin's going. I could even just tune in on a chart I've got on Bitcoin, which is going precisely according to the expected wave count. And the turn up this morning, again, was precisely in line with expectations. And I did a few trades based on that. Very, very interesting the way these things can be planned so precisely. Obviously, you need to have risk reward and so on and so forth to manage the risk. But it's, there's a lot of interesting stuff. You mentioned as well, just commenting on things that you mentioned about, Pakistan and Iran. I mean, obviously they're Muslim brothers effectively, but don't forget that they are different. So there's two kind of, I don't know quite what you call them, but two sects basically. You've got the Shiite and the Sunni Muslims, and there's always been animosity between them. So the Iranians are the Shiites, and you've got Saudi Arabia and the like. And Pakistan is actually 90% Sunni and just 10% Shiite. So there's some animosity between them, obviously, but they still have interests aligned because they're still Muslims. So they are aligned, and as you say, they're attacking Mossad headquarters, etc. So there's complete alignment there. And I think when you're looking at ideologies, obviously, Islam, even though there are differences within Islam, I think they'll kind of stick together. But the difference in ideologies comes when you look at Israel, obviously completely different. They're Iran has said their aim is to wipe out the state of Israel. So that's where the focus of attention will be. And when there's little squabbles between them, as there was, as you say, they'll high five and they'll make it up again. But when it comes to Israel, that's a different matter. And that's the black swan that's just sort of hiding in the background that could actually come out. And that's the one I'm worried about and keeping an eye on. So that's the big kind of long-term driver, because when you think about assets, you've got to think about what's driving the price of the assets. And the big movers are these. Geopolitical is probably number one. Macroeconomic is right up there, vying for the number one position. And then all the other things are kind of a lot more internal. So we can look at, for example, we'll take a look at the Bitcoin ETF and just see what's happened there. I know you mentioned the other day that we should have a bit of a closer look at the ETF and just see what's happening.
Yep.
So there's obviously been some news. You posted some news, didn't you, about the ETF? That's right, isn't it?
Yep, I did. Well, it's pretty interesting, right? You got Grayscale there, who has taken all. Everyone's like, "Oh, they're down," and I was like, "No, they're up, man. They sold. They took profits."
Yeah. So, are you able to see my screen there?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's the chart that you posted. It's quite interesting to see that, of the 11 ETFs, we got a big sell-off with Grayscale and all the rest were in positive territory. So that's really interesting. We've got to try and look underneath the bonnet and see what's driving this. So, and it's gone even further, by the way. So this was, I think you said there's been a 1.6 billion sell-off. It's now
$500 million.
Yeah. So 2.14 billion now in sell-off there for the Grayscale dump. So again, we can look at the reasons behind it. So I posted this chart, or a similar chart to it, maybe not this one, the other day, just talking about before the ETF was approved. Obviously, there's the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. There was an OTC instrument where people could effectively buy shares in this trust, and the underlying investment was Bitcoin. So what you could do some time ago was actually, looking back here, sort of February 23, you could actually buy into this trust at a massive discount to the actual Bitcoin price, about a 40% discount. So I think that the people in the know knew that this was going to be approved, and obviously they were buying Bitcoin effectively at massive discount. So that discount evaporated as we came, and I mentioned this the other day, as we came to the ETF approval. Obviously, the price of the ETF should match the actual price of Bitcoin. So it was pretty clear that discount was going to evaporate. So a massive profit to be had by these guys. And obviously, there was going to be profit taking, but that's probably not the only thing that's been driving the sell-off on Grayscale. So this is their own advertisement, and looking at the positives there. What they don't mention in the main part of the advertisement is obviously they're the largest legacy expert, they're liquid, etc. But what they don't mention is that their expense ratio is way higher than all the other ETFs that are out there. So they've got 1.5% expense ratio there, and the cheapest one is Bitwise ETF, which is 0.2%. So if you're going to just leave your money there, invested in Bitcoin in an ETF effectively, you're not going to choose necessarily the one with the highest ratio. And being as the Grayscale was already there, holding the Bitcoin, it makes sense that people would sell from there and move to the ones with a lower expense ratio. So I think that's some explanation. And I think the reason there hasn't been a complete exodus from Grayscale is because there are potentially massive capital gains tax issues by moving to another ETF. And so I think that's held back the exodus from Grayscale to the others. But I think gradually we'll probably see more and more of this. But I still think and believe that long term, these ETFs are a good thing, and they do open up the market to financial advisors and the like. So I think long term it's a good thing, but short term we need to look at the internal dynamics to see what's happening. And clearly a lot of profit taking from a lot of people in the know that knew this. They were buying at discount. They could buy effectively Bitcoin at a 40% discount. Just wait for the ETF to be approved, and they can sell at the full price. So massive profit taking to be had there. As I say, they may want to be in Bitcoin, but they don't want to move to the cheaper ones at the moment, possibly part of that reason being capital gains tax. So we can look at, I'm looking at two long-term views of Bitcoin here. I want to illustrate that you can have both a bullish or a bearish outlook on Bitcoin on these charts. So this is going from the all-time high of 69,000-ish to the current price today, and it's got it counted effectively as a wave one up to that all-time high, and then an ABC wave two down. And then we're climbing in the black here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then expecting a fifth wave higher. But what this is actually telling you is that the corrective move is down and the impulsive move is higher. And if this is correct, it's going to take us to new all-time highs. So yes, we'll get wave 5 and a bit of a correction, but after that, longer term, it's going to blast to brand new all-time highs for Bitcoin. And that is a real possibility. That could well happen, especially once they get the printing presses going again later this year. But there is another side to the argument, and this looks like it's the same chart, but it's not. It looks exactly the same, but you can count it as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is a perfectly valid count, ABC higher in wave 2. Then the next move would take you to a low beyond this, the start of this wave 1 here. So this is completely opposite outlook. But for me, I trade what's in front of me. And whilst there's two sides to the argument, and anything can happen, you need to look at other things as to what can potentially happen. So I look at the short-term view, because you're not trading what's going to be in 6 months' time. You're trying to trade what's immediately in front of you to make a profit, unless you really have some good inside information like those guys with Grayscale, perhaps. So looking at the short term, this is just very, very recent price movement, this year, basically. We've had a 1, 2, 3, 4, working on a fifth wave down, and then we'll get a bit of a push higher. So we'll probably finish that fifth wave here. So that's quite interesting, because you said there's been a tick up this morning in price. And
well, from the low, but yeah.
From the low, so that was here, but that was actually where this wave finished, this wave 5 had finished. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And wave 5, that's the end of an impulse. So we would expect there to be at least a correction higher now, and that looks like it's underway. And when you look at it from the Fibonacci measurements, the internal Fibonacci structure of this wave pattern, it's absolutely spot on. And so we expected that, and I actually put a trade on at the bottom of the market, expecting it to push a little bit higher. So, but we need to take other things into account and just think what's happening, what's driving price, because it doesn't just move in isolation. We have got to look at the other things. So we've been looking lately at what's happening with the crude oil prices. And I think, as I said, we have an impulsive wave. Impulses are always in 5 waves. So an impulsive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the upside. That means the overall direction for this is to the upside. And then we have an ABC correction to the downside. And it looks as though from that downside there, we actually got some bullish divergence or hidden bullish divergence telling us price was going to push higher. And that's precisely what it did from the very point divergence was labeled. There it is, hidden bullish divergence. I won't go into the detail of what that is, but it tells you that price is going to now push higher in the direction of this trend. And that's what's happened. But whilst it pushed higher in a wave there, we are chopping around basically before we push higher again, it looks like, in oil. So we may get a bit more movement down before we push higher again, because the impulse is to the upside. So I do expect higher oil prices moving forward. And the other thing we need to look at, it's all tied together, is the US dollar, because that does drive, it is the reserve currency. And, in the long term, we've had basically a W wave down, X up, and we're looking at an ABC down for the Y wave. So we've had the A wave down. It was in a beautiful channel here. That's perfect A wave. And now we're pushing up in the B wave. And it looks as though short term, we've got a bit lower to go in the dollar, which means probably a bit higher to go in Bitcoin and risk assets. So the Bitcoin and risk assets go in the opposite direction to what this chart is telling you, because they're inversely correlated. So it's a great way, because we've got a long history of these assets, to get a picture of where we're likely to go on Bitcoin. And I use it to trade. I used it to trade this morning, and it works very, very well. So it's just interesting that we are expecting, yes, there's going to be some choppiness, but some more substantial downside to come in the not too distant future for DXY, dollar index. So that might align with some money printing sometime down the line this year. If they print money, the value of the dollar would likely fall. But that means if they're printing money, there's lots of money swishing around in the economy, which needs to find somewhere to go. And it'll go into property, and it'll go into risk assets like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, stock market. So potentially, we've not reached the all-time high on stock markets. Yes, they're all-time high right now. And fairly soon, we'll get a correction when this dollar moves up here. So we'll get a correction, but it doesn't mean that the top's in place right now. I do think that when the dollar starts to decline, we're going to see new all-time highs. So what I'm saying is the market has not completely run out of steam. We are in the election year. They're going to print money. All the pieces fit together. The jigsaw makes a beautiful picture of exactly what's going to happen. So that's my summary for today.
Yep. That it is going to be a crazy year. So everyone, this 40K level on Bitcoin seems to be the that seems to be the bounce, right? I don't really expect it. I mean, could go lower.
No. I mean, I'll just jump to a Bitcoin chart. I don't know which one I'm going to jump to. I mean, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump to my own. Seeing it'll show here. Let's just see. This is my very own Bitcoin chart. I guess you can see that.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is basically what happened from the ETF when the ETF was approved. That was the spike that we got on approval, and then we got basically that's buy the rumor, which got us up to there, and sell the news, which has taken us down. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 was exactly, see the penny, 1.618 times wave 1. Then we got wave 4, and then within wave 5 we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again the wave 3 here was exactly 1.618 times wave 1 to the penny. So these are precise. And then we've got to move up in wave 4. I mean, it could be that the wave 4 is here, and we're still, but basically, I'm expecting some move up at some point reasonably soon in this wave B. But following wave B, we'll get a C wave down to take us below here, which will take us below 40,000 again on Bitcoin. That's not too distant future. I'm not saying how far below. I'm not saying it's going to crash. I don't believe we're necessarily looking at a crash or anything like that. But I do think that we're going to be looking at a movement down in a final C wave, to lower levels, which will take us into the 30,000s. Not 30, but into the between 30 and 40,000 area. What I'm saying is below this low point here, which is 40,000. So yes, we're going to climb in the B wave, but we've still got lower to go. That'll be a time where I'll start thinking very seriously about, is this the time to jump into heavier exposure to Bitcoin and other risk assets. So it's all laid out there. And again, if you follow what's happening with dollar index, with the oil price, with the geopolitical goings on in the world, then you don't go too far wrong as long as you've got a good risk reward strategy. So it's all there for everyone to see, basically. Same with the old Bitcoin trust. It was there for people to see. I didn't notice it, actually. You can't have your eyes on everything. If I'd thought about that seriously, I'd have been in there. Same with when XRP won the court case. I missed that one, unfortunately, but obviously, I mean, it's pretty obvious they were going to win that court case, as to the extent they won it. And so it was obvious you should be long XRP at the time. I wasn't, which I had been, but we got a massive pump from, what was it, around 40 cents to 90 cents, somewhere around there. So you doubled your money, or more than doubled your money.
It was big. It was a lot of money in that pump. A lot of money.
Nobody bats 1,000, as we say.
Yeah, so there are opportunities. You can't get them all, but focus on a few, because you just can't have your eyes on everything at the same time. But focus on a few of those, and there are opportunities. So I do think that if we see Bitcoin rising as I'm expecting here, and then a further fall, that might be an area where you'll look at all the information that's available, then make an informed decision on whether that's a good time to go in. and maybe collect some more Bitcoin for the long term. Maybe you can afford a whole Bitcoin or a few, who knows? But don't follow the crowd. Like everyone, when the ETF was approved, the crowd was saying, "Oh, it's going to the moon."
Right.
That's probably not the time to follow the crowd. It's when there's blood in the streets and there's been a bit of a sell-off, and people are starting to get a bit, selling off, getting a bit worried. That's the time to start thinking about jumping into these assets. But at the same time, don't do anything in isolation. Take as much evidence as you can gather, the due diligence and evidence that you can gather to support your decision, and then use solid risk reward. And long term, you won't go wrong.
Indeed.
Yeah. So there's your Litecoin. It's been interesting. Quite a strong sell-off to the downside there, but it's wouldn't be at all surprised if you start to see some good upside now on Litecoin, because we appear to have had some kind of 3-wave move up there and a 3-wave move down there. So you'd expect probably 5 waves to the upside. That would be what's called a flat correction. It's a 3-3-5. It would be an expanded flat correction probably. So wouldn't surprise me to see some nice upside anytime now. And again, we're not giving direct advice. We're not financial advisors, but just the chart appears to be screaming, saying we should get a little bit of upside anytime soon on Litecoin. So,
yep, it looks pretty. It looks pretty tasty. Well, this level as well between $70. I mean, Litecoin. It's one of my obviously it's one of my favorite coins, but it's also my other brother James. He loves trading this coin. That $10, it'll stay in a $10 range for the longest time, and just kind of go back and forth. And so this $70 range, I guess it's been in for a while here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these tokens seem to be quite similar, where they just hang on and stuck in a price range for a long time. Then you suddenly get a real pump. And XRP is one of those. Certainly, Litecoin is another one of those. They're big tokens, got pretty big liquidity, and when they move really aggressively because they've got massive communities. I mean, you look at the communities behind these things. Once you start to get the good news rolling out, everyone starts piling in again, and the moves are really aggressive. So, wouldn't surprise me, as I say, to start to see some decent upside on this token. I'm just looking to see if there's any particular divergences in place. Nothing that I can see offhand, apart from this old one here. It was basically a hidden bullish divergence, which was actually telling you price was going to go up from here. So the price to jump in was just a little bit higher. It was about there. It was about $64, to be honest. So that would have been a good time to jump in at $64. You could now already be protecting it, somewhere here with a stop loss in place. So you're guaranteed, no matter what, $2 profit. And if the price does go up, you're really happy. And if it goes down, crashes, you still made $2 profit. So that's the kind of way that I like to trade. Low risk trading, move your positions into guaranteed profit positions when you can. And there's full of opportunities across crypto.
Full of opportunities. Awesome.
Yeah. So so it's been very, very interesting, exciting times. It's great to keep an eye on what's happening in the world of geopolitics. As I say, my main concern right now is what's going on in and around Israel, because it does appear to be getting some kind of confederacy of nations now piling up against Israel. And then again, Putin, that guy, he's got interest there, by the way, because Israel do have massive amounts of natural gas. There's obviously now real interest there from a wealth point of view in terms of controlling the world's energy supply. That will put Russia in a very strong position. I mean, they already have massive reserves of oil. Russia do, oil and gas. Actually also lock up a bit of the Middle East as well. Should be very much in their interest, you would think. And that's why America keeps interest there. They're in with Saudi Arabia, they're in with Israel. So America's keeping an interest in there. But as I said, there's that dichotomy between the Shiites and the Muslims. And don't forget, the Iranians are the Shiites, and America doesn't seem to be particularly good friends with any of the Shiite nations.
Interesting.
So just keep those at the back of your mind just to understand the dynamics of what's going on. And as I say, you could never see there really being a major fallout between Iran and Pakistan because they're Muslim brothers very far apart geographically, but they've got the common interest there.
Yeah, I mean, it looked to me. I mean, I thought it was as it rolled out. I just kind of was a little bit scratching my head. I actually think that they just bombed each other's the people they didn't want to have in their country. It was easy. I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? That's pure speculation, I suppose, on my part. But what maybe the easiest way for them to get rid of those bases. How could they ever, get them out of their countries? But no, they're gone.
I mean, you're right. Using the circumstances to their advantage, and it's probably drawn them closer together in doing that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, very cool, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure from my side too. And yeah, great to be involved. I think you did a great job. And thank you to all your community for all your follows and likes and everything that you're doing. Not that I gain anything from it financially, but it's just good to actually be providing information for people. I'm sure ultimately having a big community following is beneficial. I've seen you've got a great community and good to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. That is great. And Yves, we love Yves as well. And it is great. It is
it's so
fun
impactful
to have you on. Everybody loves it, including us. We're learning so much as well. And I can't wait to get over there and see you in person again too.
Yeah, that'd be good. Look forward to that. Well, thank you guys. I've actually got another engagement I've got to run to now anyway. So good time to leave and look forward to tomorrow.
Cheers. Fantastic. See you in the morning.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Bye for now.
Yeah, that is the best, man.
I know. It is great. We started the show. Matt was he was the first person we invited on, and he said, "Hey, I like this. This is great. I get to share a lot of my knowledge. I mean, what a wealth of knowledge that the guy has."
Exactly.
And to be able to bring it to everybody is really just absolutely fantastic. I mean, you and I can sit here and talk crypto and politics all day long, but bring on Matt. He gives us a little bit of validity, I guess, right?
Yeah, with the AI charts, and also like you said, his experience in the markets, and yeah, it adds a lot to our day,
Of course it does. It adds a lot to our day, which speaking of the day, so things are moving along here. Bitcoin has continued its uptick. So you heard him. He entered into a small buy there on the dip. I would say it's probably still in the dip. Probably see a bit more of a push from here. Again, though, these are risky times, and it might wick down again too. So you might want to put a lower order there. And let's see here. We have a bit more stuff that is going on as we are here. So Trump is he is back in to New York.
Oh yes. He was speaking last night, huh?
He was speaking last night, but no, this is some court case. I mean, we have this lawfare. He was speaking last night. He's in New Hampshire, of course. Now, actually, the whole Nikki Haley thing, I mean, isn't that funny? So we have Nikki. So, well, I guess the big news is that DeSantis dropped out. DeSantis dropped out. The sanctimonious name has been retired.
Yeah.
That's what Trump says. It's been
Did
retired.
He endorse Trump?
He endorsed Trump.
Okay.
After all of the stuff that he said about him. Politics is a funny business, man.
Well, that's men in general, right? We could have a huge argument, then finally settle it and just be all right and move on.
You're right. Men in general are that way. That's a good point, David.
No grudge.
All right. Oh, we're friends. Look at Pakistan. We're fine. It's fine. So this is Vivek tearing apart Nikki Haley. So Nikki is kind of, I guess, the last kind of one standing.
When you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is. And now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party.
Wow. Vivek accusing Nikki of sniffing the corruption pills, huh?
Oh man, that's not all we got. I know Nikki here. So this is pretty funny. Actually, since we're scrolling through here, check this out. This is pretty cool. And then I'll pull this up. Watch this. This is. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I mean, some people are famous, right?
Cool, huh?
Yeah, amazing talent.
Amazing talent. All right, hold on, Nikki. So this was pretty funny because. Oh yeah, all right. So I posted this a few days ago. A fatal blow to Nikki Haley. Sworn affidavits from 2010. Will Folks and Larry Marchant say that Nikki got busy in the back of her Cadillac SUV. I think I talked about it on the show last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff's just too much information for me, man.
I know. But then in the other one too, it's she also is. So there were two different instances there, right? There was one in the SUV, and then there's the other one. But this is what's interesting, David. This is what's interesting, and this tells you everything that you need to know about Nikki Haley, in my honest opinion. The media doesn't mention it at all.
What? Doesn't mention what?
If it came out that Trump had relations with two women, it would be that would be all the news was talking about.
Oh, yes.
If Vivek was in trouble, that would be all they were talking about. Look, there that one story, like nothing, zero.
Mm-hmm. That is when you know they're a puppet.
That is when you know they're a puppet. That's it, right there. That's all you need to know, right there. Like that. That's it. And that's why I actually almost didn't post the first part of it. But then I kind of decided that, that.
When I get into office, the first thing we have to do, social media companies, they have to show America their algorithms. Let us see why they're pushing what they're pushing. The second thing is every person on social media should be verified by their name. That's, first of all, it's a national security threat. When you do that, all of a sudden people have to stand by what they say, and it gets rid of the Russian bots, the Iranian bots, and the Chinese bots. And then you're going to get some civility when people know their name is next to what they say. Accountability. And they know their pastor and their family member is going to see it. It's going to help our kids, and it's going to help our country. When I get into office, the first thing
just a puppet, really.
Yeah, that'll really stop the bots.
Yeah, that'll stop the bots. All right. So anyway, pretty interesting. I wanted to play something else. What was it that I said I was going to play? It was something as we were talking with so we're going to a little bit of pull back on the Bitcoin now. Listen, if you watched our show the other day, and I think when our afternoon show, he may start to come in fairly regularly, we'll see, but Henry Weingarten, and he said that we'll probably slide until the end of the month. And then
I agree I go with my intuition says this as well.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it won't go like this a bit,
but a downtrend as things people start to accumulate more, and we build towards the next big news cycle.
The next big news cycle.
Yeah, it was big news cycle leading up to the ETF release.
Yes. So I've been wanting to play Hamdan for a while here. This was at the Versace mansion. We were throwing one of our galas. And Hamdan Hazar, Nick Spanos' right-hand man, gave an impassioned talk about freedom and standing up to the tyrants that are running this place.
Talk about blockchain and politics and what's it like since you know a little bit about being an incumbent in Facebook. What is the idea behind
I think it depends on we're at the
that's Nick in the middle
of two very powerful trends in human society. One is that people generally don't understand technology. Blockchain especially, most people don't understand it. And that ignorance is something we confront on a daily basis. Now you pair that up with the fact that you have politicians who are in the business of not understanding a lot of what's happening in the world, facing a technology like blockchain that has the potential to radically alter the course of the world. Our friend Austin Alexander likes to say blockchain is the single greatest invention of our lifetime, probably even the past century. The world has never seen anything like it. And the world is struggling to understand what this means. And I think something I've learned from Nick Spanos is that we are entering a phase where we're going to see the largest, most powerful entities in the world rapidly adopting blockchain. And we're already seeing that. We're seeing the biggest banks, we're seeing the biggest corporations, we're seeing governments, we're seeing government bodies, all of whom are creating blockchain working groups and creating blockchain labs. And a lot of people are happy because they think this lends this field legitimacy.
We're justified now.
Yeah.
For fighting all these years.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Because Nick says that when Bitcoin came to New York, it was something that was done in the alleys. People were hiding in corners and street corners, and they were trading Bitcoin with themselves right behind West 5th Street, right behind Washington Square Park, right behind Union Square Park. It was something people were ashamed of. They were hiding. And the Bitcoin meetup in New York City used to meet at the Whole Foods. That was the one place that hadn't kicked them out yet. And they would come in the Whole Foods. There was a salad bar. They would buy a $4.99 little box of salad, and they would sit there and trade Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden, seemingly overnight, not even 5-8 years later, the biggest entities in the world have embraced this new technology. But I think we have to be very cautious about why are they getting into this? What are the original guiding ethos of this technology, and how do we protect that ethos? How do we preserve that ethos? Because this same technology that I thought could free them is actually ending up imprisoning them. That's what we're seeing in a lot of countries in the world that originally were very excited about smart cities. A lot of people are realizing smart cities is a code word for surveillance cities.
Yeah.
It's a city where everything you do, every step you take, every dollar you spend, every pack of bubble gum you buy, every phone call you make is monitored in a central database, and it's being used against you. It's being used to curtail human freedoms drastically. And that's the risk we are all facing. That's sort of the elephant, that's the giant in the room, that this incredible new technology could be used to surveil us and to dominate us like nothing we have ever seen in the world before. So I think we need to be vigilant. We need to stay in the vanguard and remember why we got into this, because it wasn't to get rich. A lot of us got rich. That's great. But that's not why we got into this. We got into this because we wanted to make the world a better, freer place. And that's the struggle we're all in. And we encourage all of you. We commend this community for being at the vanguard of this movement for human liberty and human freedom. And that's the journey we're all on.
Can you name a few things in how we protect this ethos? You mentioned a little bit earlier that we must protect this ethos. Just give me a couple of examples of what you have in mind and how it exists.
I think at the very least we have to keep telling ourselves these stories of what it was like in the early days. What was it like when we had to hide who we were? What was it like when we had to do this in the alleyways? What was it like when we were ashamed of telling our family members and our friends and our bosses what we were doing on Thursday nights? Is going to Bitcoin meetups, because like Bitcoin, we heard that's for drug dealers. And a lot of people still believe that. But now all of a sudden Bitcoin, we heard you become a billionaire doing that. That's actually just as bad, because it hides the fact the reason we got into this is to protect ourselves from governments and from big corporations and from needing powerful middlemen to live the course of our daily life. If I want to buy a coffee from a coffee shop, why should I have to transact with this powerful global banking system that if I want to transact with it, that should be great, but I shouldn't be compelled to do so. And that's the alternative future that Bitcoin imagines. That's the alternative reality that Bitcoin presupposes. It says that technology should not just be used to surveil us and to control us. Technology can be used to give us new freedoms, to allow us to act in free ways that we've never been able to act before. And I think it's vitally important that we preserve that.
And talk about Nick's work in government and the impact of that with the Center Institute.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Spanos definitely seems like a rebel at first glance, but I think he's done tremendous work for the State Department going back to the 70s or 80s. He gets very he doesn't like to admit it, but he did a lot of Nick does motorcades, he does advanced work. Nick works for the Pope, the Greek patriarch in Constantinople, the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew, his All Holiness. Nick has worked for him for many years. I think Nick Spanos is one of a kind, because you meet him and you're like, this is a guy who grew up in a garage and he's a mechanic and he also does real estate. Maybe he shows apartments, but that's like not even true. None of that is true. That's just a facade. And you dive a little deeper beneath the surface and you see this is a guy having cigars with Fidel Castro. This is a guy taking Gorbachev on his first tour of North America and Europe. This is a guy who has been really, I don't want to say, not like Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump was just an innocent guy who ended up in world history. Nick Spanos is a legitimate power player who has been in the greatest scenes in world history. And here's a man who he could be sitting right now having cigars in Venezuela or in Moscow or in Washington, D.C. at the White House. But he's here in Miami. He's here teaching people about Bitcoin, about blockchain, because he believes that this is important. This is powerful, and the world needs this. The time is now, because if we don't free ourselves with the blockchain and with Bitcoin, the future is going to be a dark, dark place, and we don't want that. The future is bright. We were born free, and I think we owe it to ourselves to stand up and to embrace our destiny. It's so close. We're almost there.
Wow. There he is. That was just such a great speech. What he talked about that was so important there was that if we don't use the blockchain to free ourselves, it's going to be used to imprison us.
Yeah.
We have something that we can use to free ourselves. The decentralized, permissionless blockchain. Not these tokens. Not, you can make money on them. It's fine. Not Ethereum, not XRP, not these other ones. Okay, I'm talking about the old proof of work Bitcoins that are impossible to seize, they're impossible to freeze, they're impossible to take by court order. This is freedom. These things are what it's all about. Anyway, Trump, this is Trump talking. He sends his, he congratulates DeSantis on a good campaign and thanks him for his endorsement.
Before we begin, I'd like to take time to congratulate Ron DeSantis and, of course, a really terrific person who I've gotten to know, his wife, Casey, for having run a great campaign for president. He did. He ran a really good campaign, I will tell you. It's not easy. They think it's easy doing this stuff, right? It's not easy. But as you know, he left the campaign trail today at 3 p.m., and in so doing, he was very gracious and he endorsed me. So I appreciate it. I appreciate that. And I also look forward to working with Ron and everybody else to defeat crooked Joe Biden. We will have to get him out. We have to get him out.
it's so funny that they didn't try to find another candidate, even give anybody an opportunity on the Democratic Party, while we see so many reasons that maybe they should find like another potential candidate to at least have a debate with.
Yet, I would say yet. I have a
Yeah.
feeling. I don't know. I mean, call me crazy, but I just have a feeling that they might. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
they said he's the
I wouldn't
guy.
be surprised if Biden doesn't make it to the finish line.
Yeah, but it's just a really interesting situation. Like you said last week, everything feels weird and funny.
Everything feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I got to tell you, I mean, people I'm very close with look at me and say, Bruce, come on. Do you really think so? You know, like it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the thing about it is, of course, the people's vote, the people, of course, he's got the people's vote, but does that matter anymore? I don't know.
Well, they took away the people's vote by not having a debate and presenting options.
Yeah, pretty. It's interesting times. Here is the Donald retiring to sanctimonious.
It's retired. Okay. Just said, will I be using the name Ron DeSanctimonious? I said, that name is officially retired.
Well, he's sure sanctimonious.
You gotta love Trump, you know. I mean, like him or not, I mean, the guy's entertaining. He can
Classic.
talk. He can talk so well, and yeah, I mean, I feel like even for world peace and everything else, I mean, I think the entire world really wants. Well, people want peace.
I would concur about that. I've spoken to many people outside the U.S. You know, some pretty deep conversations, and they all agree that hopefully Trump gets back into office.
Right?
Yeah, that's definitely the overall view from outside the U.S.
It is the overall view. Yep, that's great. What is this now here? All right. So yeah, that's where we're at. Of course, we have New Hampshire coming up here in days. The Trump is going to, you know, the thing about Nikki Haley is that she really has no support. The only support she has is really the Democrats. And so they came into Iowa. I mean, that was proven. They ran out of the forms so that you can register or change your. I guess what you did in Iowa, and same. I'm not sure which is which, so I don't want to be like fact checked or something. But there's some method that you use, whether it's you declare yourself not affiliated with the party, and then you can go in the primary, or you change party affiliation, however it is. And you can participate both in Iowa and New Hampshire. So we're going to see in New Hampshire, I think she's going to have probably fairly big numbers, especially now that.
Let's consider this a scam.
It's a scam. Of course it is.
And it's interesting DeSantis didn't endorse her instead.
Well, I think the writing was on the wall. And, you know, I mean, if like, that would have been the final nail in his coffin. I mean, he's still thinking he's going to run in 2028. If he didn't endorse Trump, those days are over. But I agree. He, you know, there's big money in this deal. You know, these people, they get into office, even if they have the best intentions, and then hundreds of millions of dollars start getting thrown around, and it changes things.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, great show today, David.
Thank you. Thanks so much for everything that you've been doing, Bruce. Have a great time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We love you.
We'll be back on TV in about 6 hours from now, 5 hours from now. Porter Brothers, see you soon.
See you soon.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.